from Studio 67 in Florida's capital county, it's time to get fact-checked.
Access granted.
What's up, good people of Florida? You've got Jared, Courtney, and Amir back for another episode of Fact Check. The countdown clock on Sunny Die reads 28 days. That means we hit the halfway mark earlier this week, and the halftime event was Miami-Dade County Day. How'd you guys like it?
That's
was
a big
awesome.
One.
Yeah.
It was very lively, very exciting.
From the Gators to the Gar.
Oh, man. They had paella in the courtyard for lunch. The line was in another zip code. It was backing all the way up to about Wakulla County. And then the nighttime came, and, we partied until the sun rose. We were on Cuban time, so finally got to feel what Eddie Labrador feels every single day.
And they actually had Cuban coffee out there, too, to keep you awake and pumping.
I was bouncing off the walls. It was awesome. But, hey, Miami-Dade County, thanks for showing out as usual. We got the Super Bowl this weekend.
Yep.
What you guys thinking? Who's going to take home the trophy this year?
Scripted, man.
I could have guessed that. Yeah.
Well scripted.
I'm going to take the Niners personally, but I like to be a contrarian. But you guys do anything
for Super Bowl?
Yeah. What's you guys got any go-to Super Bowl foods?
All right,
I'm a chicken dip guy.
I'm a dip person.
I was just talking to Courtney about this before we hopped on, but Madison Social is doing a pound of wings and a pound of beer for $16 during the game.
That's free money.
That's free money. A pound of beer is 16 ounces.
Just they paying you for the promo?
Not at all, but I just saw that and I was like, yeah.
Just spreading the gospel. Well, that was Amir Warren doing free promo for Madison Social. We will get right into the swing of things. We're going to kick it over to Courtney for what else but term limits?
Term limits.
Come on.
A lot of moving parts there, but Courtney, what's the latest?
Yeah, the Senate Committee on Community Affairs passed SB 438 by Senator Ngolia. In the Senate bill, the term limits are still at 8 years. And during committee, there was 2 amendments that were adopted. The first one requires charter counties with 12-year term limits, which is Polk, Lee, and Broward, to put a measure on the ballot to allow voters to decide if their county commissioners should be subjective to 8 years. This is a bit confusing because it doesn't say that they are at 12 years currently. It's basically just a open panel of who thinks it should be at 8 years. So if the citizens of those counties don't already know that, then it's kind of just a mind game a little bit. And the second one only applied to charter counties with no term limits prior to service before 11/5 of 2024 does not count towards the 8 years, and this does not supersede more restrictive term limits and does not authorize county commissioners to serve another 8 years. So the bill did pass, and those were the 2 amendments on them right now, and the House bill is at 12 years currently.
Now, as always, they could keep this real simple and just keep it in the hands of the voters, but
right.
We are beating a dead horse at this point
yes.
on that one. So I will shift gears and kick it over to Amir to talk that millage rate bill we've seen for a couple weeks running now.
And we were able to see both bills this week. We saw HB 1195 by Rep. Garrison and SB 1322 by Senator Ngolia, which Bob was present for both, and he did testify against both. Now, to catch everyone up to speed, both bills provide that county municipalities or independent special districts may not increase the previous millage rate unless approved by 2/3 vote of the membership of the governing body of the county. Again, we do have things in place that already kind of allow us to do this. We already have a 2/3 vote measured by the rollback rate, which is something that Bob McKee was able to explain during his testimony. So we'll kind of see how these are moving. So with that, SB 1322, which was Ngolia's bill, passed favorably in the Finance and Tax Committee, and HB 1195 made it through all of its committee runs, being reported favorably with 13-4 voting in the State Affairs Committee.
Thanks, Amir. I'm going to pivot real quick. I'm sure everybody remembers Senate Bill 170 from a couple years back. This was dubbed the preemption to end all preemptions. It required business impact statements for certain county ordinances. And the idea was that, if a county did something that was seen as arbitrary or unreasonable by a business, that business could seek legal recourse based on that business impact statement. Fast forward to this session, we've got Senate Bill 1628 by Senator Collins. which passed the Senate Community Affairs Committee this week, and the House version, House Bill 1547 by Representative, I believe it's McClure, that passed its first committee stop in local admin and federal affairs this week. What this would do, looking back to 170, there were a handful of exemptions to that business impact statement requirement. Among those were certain land use and comp plan amendments that obviously would not be subject to that requirement. This would take out that carve-out for land use and comp plan amendments. The only such thing in that category that will still be exempt if this bill were to pass would be development orders and development permits. So obviously we're kind of fighting this one tooth and nail as much as we can, and we'll just have to see where it goes from here. Now, this is obviously a threat to county's growth management authority, and so we'll be opposing this one going forward. Courtney, I'm going to pivot back to you. What is going on with this public camping bill?
Yes, so the public sleeping and public camping bill, both were in its respective Senate and House committees this week. Both bills did have a delete everything amendment that was adopted. The bills kind of clarified what public sleeping and public camping meant. Public camping is overnight with the use of a temporary housing such as a tent, and public sleeping is just residing outdoors overnight. This bill makes homelessness illegal in the sense that if municipality or a county wants to allow public sleeping or public camping in parks or on sidewalks, they have to issue a temporary permit. The bill is unclear who issues this temporary permit. And on top of that, if they don't want to do this, then they can also create a designated property that's owned by the county for a continuous period of time of no longer than a year for people to go publicly sleep and publicly camp overnight. They are trying to find a way to help our homeless community, but this kind of just allocates them all to one area, and it's very hard to get people to go to this area without wanting to.
This is a delicate situation for sure, Courtney. Why don't we talk a little bit about that cause of action that the bill creates as well?
Yes, the cause of action is probably one of the biggest steps of this bill. Any private entity can sue a county or municipality for a homeless person sleeping or camping in front of their private property. They can call the police and say, can you please have this person moved? And if they are not moved, then they have the cause of action to sue.
Well, and that's one of the trickiest parts here is obviously, we're not looking to shift the blame to our friends, the sheriff's department, for example. But,
right.
This is obviously a function of law enforcement, potentially, to address these people if they're sleeping on, a business's property.
Right.
And so what is the Board of County Commissioners expected to do here? And I think what we're looking to do is, if that is to exist, make it more appropriate to, us carving out a certain area with certain criteria,
right,
for these
right.
people to sleep, and making sure that, the county follows through on that, obviously. But.
Right, and that's part of it. The county doesn't have to issue the temporary permits. They also do not have to create these designated properties, but private owners can still sue us.
Got to make it work. I think that's the thing to remember here is it just has to work from a technical perspective. So we'll be on top of that one for sure. Amir, what is going on with this Monroe County affordable housing?
So on Tuesday we heard Senate Bill 1456. It made its first committee appearance in the Senate Community Affairs Committee, and this bill, sponsored by Senator Rodriguez, provides provisions that are aimed to address workforce housing needs in Monroe County, Florida Keys, an area of critical state concern. Now, the Florida Keys was designated as a critical state concern area in the mid-70s, and what this means is that local, regional, and state government have to work together essentially for any building or development plans there. And one of the noteworthy provisions within this entire bill, I just want to read it off. It allows a designated county levying tourist taxes, now that can be either tourist impact or tourist development taxes, to transfer surplus funds accrued through September 30th, 2024 for the affordable housing aimed at employees affected by tourism. Housing finance from this surplus must remain affordable for at least 99 years, which was a very noteworthy provision that they implemented in that one. Bob McKee was in attendance for the Community Affairs Committee to waive in support of Senator Rodriguez's good bill. The bill ended up passing unanimously 8-0 and now is heading to its second committee stop, which is going to be the Senate Finance and Tax Committee. House Companion 1297, sponsored by Representative Mooney, also passed favorably this week and was sent to the EDR's Revenue Estimating Impact Conference this morning, but they decided to roll it back next week because they didn't have enough data to put together the fiscal impact.
Thanks, Amir. I know our friends down in Monroe County will be pleased to see this one on the move. One last bill before we move into budget talks is the Senate version of the building permit dereg bill that we've been following for a while. Now, the House bill has moved, I think, twice now. It's in its last committee.
Yeah.
The Senate bill by Senator DeSigley, and that's Senate Bill 684, moved for the first time this week, passing in Senate Community Affairs. Now, this has a lot of the same parts as the House bill, with some tweaks here and there, mostly for the better, if I'm being honest. It has that batch permitting language that we're giving for preliminary plats, obviously, and it does provide for a vested rights test within a preliminary plat. If the developer meets certain requirements, including substantial change in his or her position, as well as just good faith development of the property. That was one we were pleased to see. I know Eddie Labrador has been a fierce proponent of keeping the legal test kind of as is, and so I think we're pleased with kind of where that language is shaping up. It also changes the shot clocks a little bit from the House version, mostly again for the better. More specifically, that means a 30-day shot clock for structures under 7,500 square feet. This means residential units, single family, as well as accessory structures, alarm, electrical, anything that's part of a 7,500 square foot or less structure. As well as 60 days for any signs or non-residential buildings under 25,000 square feet, and then 120 business days. I think the key difference to highlight here is that the House still has that problematic deemed approved language, where if a local government plans reviewer was to not meet those certain timelines within the bill, that application would be deemed approved. That's a public safety nightmare. I mean, that's just something that is a non-starter for us. The Senate does not have that language, and so that is a minor victory there. Moving right along, guys, both the House and Senate passed their proposed budgets this week. Those are now passed off the floor, and they will move shortly into budget conference to kind of align those two a little more clearly. Now, the House and Senate are pretty close in their total estimates this year, so hopefully there is not too much work to do during budget conference. The House proposed budget comes in at about $115.5 billion, while the Senate comes in at $115.9 billion. Both of these are down a little bit from the previous fiscal year's budget. Obviously, some of that federal money that was flowing in during COVID is starting to dry up a little bit, and inflation is coming down, so revenues are also dropping a little bit. But $115 billion would still be the second largest budget ever, and so the state is still flush with cash, and so we're hoping to kind of get funding where we need it as far as certain community needs. One highlight I wanted to mention in kind of the water space is the Resilient Florida Grant Program, only because there is a pretty sizable gap between the House and Senate on that one. More specifically, the House allocates $200 million for the Resilient Florida Grant Program, while the Senate only appropriates half that at $100 million. Both provide that $20 million in Resilient Florida planning grants, before we get shovels in the ground on that one. But just wanted to highlight that big difference. Courtney, what are you seeing on kind of your silos within the budget?
Yeah, in the affordable housing space, SHIP was allocated $174 million. Hometown Heroes got $75 million. And then another $234 million went to the Florida Housing Finance Corporation for other affordable housing projects.
Well, we are pleased to see those programs obviously getting the money they deserve. Amir, how about you? What are you seeing kind of in your issue areas?
One thing that both sides can't agree on is that our fiscally constrained counties do need money, and with that, they've both agreed on the same budget price for SCOP, which is our small county outreach program, of approximately $88.2 million, along with SCRAP, which is our small county resurface assistance program at $26.5 million, along with providing fiscally constrained county funding in the amount of $71.1 million to offset any impacts of previously approved constitutional amendments on fiscally constrained counties.
Thanks, guys. This is one that we'll obviously, be monitoring going forward as we move kind of into budget season. But a promising start for a handful of our priority programs here.
Yeah.
Sure.
And if you want to take a deeper look into the budget that we've put together, you can find it right through Legible.
Thank you, Courtney. Yeah, we will have a big budget report link in both Legible as well as on our website, so obviously tune into that one. I think that just about does us for the week as far as policy goes.
Yeah.
Little over halfway.
We're halfway there.
We're getting there.
Stay with us.
We're still
We're up here fighting for you guys, obviously, week in and week out, hoping to finish strong for all of our counties out there. With that being said, I think we will wrap up for the week. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and go Niners.
Happy Super Bowl weekend, everybody. See you guys next week.
Bye,
You guys
everyone.
have a good weekend.